現れろリンクさんダークナイトバッドイグニスター
Hello everyone, hopefully you're all doing well today. My name is Knights of AI. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you may have seen my lengthy deck profile I had posted roughly a week ago at the time of this video going up. This video aims to show you possible hands you might open with that version of the deck and how to approach those hands. If you haven't seen that previous video already, I would definitely recommend checking it out as I go into detail on my choices for the archetype and provide tips on how to use most of the cards. Please be aware that since the hands I will draw are on the spot, the corresponding commentary may not be 100% accurate. I might forget things as I work through hands. I'm sure some of you viewers will be able to spot these mistakes, should I make any, and point these out in the comment section below. That said, I'll jump right in. Alright, so there are two things I'd like to quickly mention before we start drawing the test hands, in addition to the introduction, sorry. Firstly, when I draw these test hands, I'm going to show you how to play them going first, and then how to play them going second. We're going to try and get through 3 test hands in a suitable amount of time that doesn't keep you here too long. Second thing I would like to mention, please drop a like on the video if you can, and drop a subscription to my channel. It does really help my channel, and I do appreciate it. Otherwise, let me get started with the test hands. So we're going to draw 5 off the top. Okay, so looking at this hand, first thing we can see here is we have all the starters we need. Mining, Bakari, Chi-Chi. Bururu is more an extra card that we can summon as an extra name. And then the Ghost Mourner, or Imperm if you play that instead of this, is a great disruption for the following turn. So let's exclude the Ghost Mourner, keep it down here for now, since we're not going to be using it during the combo. Unless you want to discard off the Mining. I don't think we need to mining it all here, just because we already have everything we need. So we're going to start out, go Bakari. The reason why I'm going Bakari is because if you wanted to play around a potential droll, what you could do is you could Bakari, grab the field spell. Your opponent would roll you, and you wouldn't be able to make the Dark Infant, but you would at least have the field spell in hand. Also, going Bakari first means that if you suspect your opponent has some sort of disruption, like an Imperm or an Ash Blossom for the Dark Infant, this assures you can get the field spell if you feel like it. In this case, we're going to play greedy, assuming our opponent doesn't have a copy of any of those disruptions. Go for a copy of the Idol Reborn, because we don't need the Rhoda. We already have enough searchability already, and the Reborn gives us more plays during our opponent's turn and during the following turn, since we can recur it back off the Doyon. So we'll link off the Bakari, grab the Dark Infant here. Keep in mind our end goal here is trying to make the Arrival. That's what this version of the deck sets out to do. Going first, make the Arrival, going second, access code OTK. Very linear. I know there's some other builds out there that play more diverse builds like code talkers, etc., so that you have more options, but my thought process is pretty simple. We're going to activate the field spell, use the field spell effect, summon the Chi-Chi from hand. The Chi-Chi will grab a copy of, let's say, the Doyon here. Should probably move the Ghost Mourner to the side a little bit. Okay, so from here, there's multiple things you could do. You could just go for the Templar without making the Wicked. Alternatively, you could make the Wicked and try to plus a little bit more, since that's just what Wicked does. In this case, we're going to play as greedy as possible, just because you never get punished when you go greedy, right? That's not Wicked, though I wish I could summon it like that. So Wicked, summon here, Island will activate, summon the Doyon here. Chainlink 1 Wicked, Chainlink 2 Doyon, so that the Wicked doesn't get ashed. If it gets Imperm, then yeah. So Doyon will grab back the Bakari, the Cyrus Wicked will banish Dark Infant. Keep in mind the banish is for costs, so even though I did that mid-resolution of the chain, it shouldn't be like that. Wicked, banish the Dark Infant, grab a copy of the Bururu. I am playing 2, so that's why. I know some of you prefer to play 1, but I'm just the type of player that likes 2, as it's an extra name if you draw it, and making sure you have copies of it is nice. So now we're here, can link these 2 off, grab the Splash Mage. Again, there's multiple ways we can do this. I'm kind of playing it a little greedy and a little bit ambitious. I guess those are synonyms. So what I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to, I want to make sure I have attributes or different attributes for the arrival. We don't play the Quantum Dragon, so we don't need to do special things to get the Quantum Dragon. In this case, what I'll do is I'll summon the Bururu here. The Bururu will activate. Make sure you always use the field spell before you use the Splash Mage effect, otherwise you would clog your zones with Splash Mage. Also, in the case you haven't noticed, I apologize that I'm not using the zones properly. The camera only goes so far, and so I'm just going to keep everything in frame. Apologies if you do have any OCD about this. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the Danmari, just because we have Bakari ready. We'll use the Splash Mage, summon back the Doyon here. Then you can go these three into the Dark Templar. The Dark Templar, you could then use the field spell, summon the Bakari from hand. The Bakari would summon back the Bururu and Chi-Chi. You can make the arrival from there and you have a reborn set. There are multiple ways of doing this. For example, I'm sure there's other ways of doing this so that you plus more. You have more cards in hand at the resolution of this combo. Since this is on the spot, as I mentioned in the intro, not everything's perfect. So summon the Dark Templar, use the field spell effect, summon the Bakari for no effect since we normal summoned it earlier. The Dark Templar will activate, summon back the Bururu and the Chi-Chi. You can send all three of these off. Summon our copy of the Arrival Cybers at Ignister. You can set the Reborn. And so you can see that this end board is pretty solid. We have the Danmari Grave to banish to prevent any face-up effects on the field from your opponent. We have the Reborn to recur extra resources. We had the Ghost Mortar and Moonlight Shell to negate any effects. Those could be any hand trap and still be good. And then our opponent just have to deal with the towers that we have on the field. In the case you're afraid your opponent would attack over this and continue attacking for game, what you could do, like for example, if your opponent has Boral Sword, they try to attack over this. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. I was going to say you could banish the Chi-Chi to destroy it and prevent battle damage, but that wouldn't make any sense because this thing would be immune by all card effects, including your own Chi-Chi. So essentially, regardless of that, you still have everything set up. You have follow-up for next turn, you have the Reborn, you have the Danmari's Negate, and you have the Towers. You'll notice that a lot of hands end up being like this, and so it's up to you how you play those hands. Now I'm going to show you how to do this hand going second. We had these two in hand, we had the Mourner. None of these were in hand initially. It was these 5. Put everything back as fast as possible so I don't use up too much of your time. We're going to shuffle as hard as possible so we don't draw any of our garnets. Draw off the top after we cut once. Well, okay, so that's pretty solid. Of course, this hand is terrible in the back row decks, but there are ways to play around that. Playing against a combo heavy deck, you have the Mourner to hopefully cripple their combo, and even if they manage to surmount, or even if they manage to build some sort of board, you have the Dark Ruler. Or if you're playing Droplets, for those of you that didn't watch the deck profile, this could be Droplets, and in actuality, I prefer Droplets over this card. So yeah, you would have these two for anti-combo. So there's 2 things I'd like to show with this hand, assuming let's pretend we use both of these cards, right? There are 2 things I'd like to show with this hand. One is the playing access code for game, being able to play through Nibiru and make that Dark Templar after the access code, and how to play against back row decks. For the 2 access code lines I'm going to show you, just pretend we use Droplets instead, or some sort of other negation effect, just so that we can get the damage on the field. So going for access code is pretty simple. You could just normal the Bakari, grab the Reborn. Let me show it actually, just so that I have some record of this. Going forward, since making access code is pretty simple, I won't show it for all of you, since I assume you'll be able to make it yourselves. We can link that off, go for the Dark Infant. Dark Infant will grab the field spell. We're trying to speed run this, actually. We could field spell, summon the Ikshikshi effect could grab the, not the Doyon actually, just grab the Doshin in this case. Special the Doshin, go these two into the Splash Mage effect, summons back the Ikshikshi. These two make the update Chammer. You can make the transcode if you like, but you don't have to. You could just go into the access code directly with these two, and that would be 4,300 on the access code. After you pop everything, then you could attack twice, and that would be game. You could make the transcode as well, so you could have 53 instead of 43. Up to you, really. But you can see that in this case, you would have access to game. This is my proxy for access code, so I'm going to flip it face down. So you would have access to the game, you'd have at least 3 pops in Grave. 1, 2, 3. And then even if your opponent stops the access code going for game, you would have great follow-up for next turn. Albeit, I could have played that combo differently so that you could have a more optimized hand for following up. Now, if we need to play around Biru, which is certainly a problem for this deck. So this was the hand, and we had assumed that we had used the Dark Ruler and the Ghost Mourner already. So in this case, I'd certainly lead off with the same thing. Go for Bakari, grab a copy of the Reborn. Playing around in Nibiru with a hand like this, what I like to do is I try to bait out the Nibiru with access code, just because that's very threatening, and then go for the Dark Templar. A hand like this can certainly do that, just because we have so many names in hand and we have plenty of searchability. So I'd grab the Reborn first. I'm going to keep the deck face up at this point, because we're going to go back in pretty frequently. Grab a copy of the Dark Infant. Go into the Dark Infant. Dark Infant will activate. Grab a copy of the field spell. Link this off. Go into... Oh, sorry. This is already linked off. I guess if you want to be greedy here, you could mining away the field spell and then banish the field spell with the Bakari to set itself. In this case, we'll wait on that. So after the field spell here, if that interaction I just mentioned does end up biting me in the butt, I will go back. But for here, Ignister Island, summon the Ikshikshi. Ikshikshi will grab a copy of the Doyon in this case. I will use the Reborn here, I believe, to summon back the Bakari. And then from here, what you can do is you can go these two into the Splash Mage. The Splash Mage effect will activate, summon back the Bakari. You can make the update Chammer. Then this should be engraved, sorry. These two into the access code. If your opponent doesn't Nibiru here, you can pop some stuff. And then declare end of main phase, your opponent would Nibiru you. So this goes to grave. You get a big token, which I'll proxy with Noble Knight Boars. So you have a token and you have plenty of extenders, so you can actually play through the Nibiru here. You'll link off the Noble Knight Boars, aka our token. Don't question me why I have Noble Knight cards. We'll go into the Link Spider. Our main Mocha Zone's cleared up again, so you can use the field spell. Summon the Doyon. Doyon will activate. Grab back the Bakari, which we haven't special summoned off the field spell yet. What you can do here, we can't use the Splash Mage again, so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to mine away the Bakari, grab a copy of the Doshin, because that's one of our main extenders. You can summon it here, go these three into the famed Dark Templar at Ignister, use the field spell again, summon the Bururu, chainlink 2 Bururu, chainlink 1 Dark Templar, that does matter because sometimes your Dark Templar might be Ghost Ogre and you don't want that. Meanwhile, if your Bururu gets Dark Templar, you can get summoned back up the Templar because the zone will be cleared up. Bururu will dump. At this point, anything's fine. I'll just dump the Demari so we don't draw it. Not that drawing Demari is bad, but in this case with no cards in hand, we don't want to do that. Oh, and I forgot. When you link off the Doyon, you can grab back the Reborn. So actually, no, we don't have an empty hand. We do have Reborn for follow-up if our board still gets outed. So from here, Dark Templar resolve, Shanlik 1, summon back the... we're going to use all these guys' effects at this point, so it doesn't really matter. Or I guess it does matter, because we're going to summon back these two. Synchro Summon into the Wind Pegasus. If your opponent still has any spells or traps, you can pop it with the Wind Pegasus. The Bururu will summon back the copy of Doyon. And then you can link these two into the Light Dragon and pop all the monsters your opponent has. So like under Dark Ruler, or in this case, since we got Nibiru, you'd only pop the Nibiru, but that's still important because you get rid of the Nibiru. So from this case, you can see this is pretty good. You were able to out your opponent's board through Nibiru and have some sort of follow-up for next turn. In the case that this Dark Ruler was something else that doesn't prevent you from doing battle damage, this would be game, just because you can use the Light Dragon effect, pop the Nibiru, enter battle phase, you would go bop 23, this guy will trigger. Whenever you inflict battle damage with another Cyrus monster, you can summon a Cyrus Link monster from grave. So bop with 23, this summons back the access code, and then that's over 8k. So you can see, again, I doubt that the two combos I've shown you are perfect combos, but at the very least, they show you the potential of the deck. Going first, you can make a rival, you have Denmari using the gate. Going second, it is possible to play the Nibiru, not always possible, and you can do things like this in order to get around that. I did say I was going to show you a third option, but that third option of going second was just making the Templar board without making access code. So you can probably see how to make the Dark Templar. It's pretty straightforward. Just getting 3 different monsters on field, making sure you have the correct names engraved to follow up with your 2 Wind Pegasus and Light Dragon. So yes, this said, oh yeah, and you should also be able to see that even in the case where our resources are run very thin, you do have access to resources that could get you back in the game over multiple turns. For example, in the case where we got Nibiru and we had to make this board, you did have access to the Reborn still to continue your plays. So the deck is very versatile, very what's the word? Versatile, very resilient to hand traps as well. I didn't play these hands considering any hand traps, but aside from the Nibiru, but you can see that even if we had gotten Astrid rolled, there are a lot of ways around things. Or I guess not around roll, but like around an Ash, Imperm, etc. There's multiple ways around things. So this said, I'm going to try out 2 more test hands, and I'll talk about them a little bit less in depth than these 2 hands I did now, just because even though this deck's very versatile and resilient, a lot of the combos are somewhat the same. So I'll save you the trouble of seeing me go through the entire combo unless the hand I draw is very important. I'm actually going to do a quick cut here, so I'll be right back. Okay, so now let's try out the last 2 test hands, making sure this video doesn't go too long, just because I feel like a 50-minute deck profile is neat, but probably not the best thing for viewership. I'll cut the deck real quick, and then we'll draw our 5-card hand. Okay, so gonna be honest, this hand doesn't do anything. So going first, you have no names, so you can't really do much about that. Going first, yeah, you'd have to use one of these 2 cards. You have to use these 3 cards and hope that you can stop your opponent through them, and then hopefully your top deck is a good card. Our top deck in this case is a mining, so that is good. So going first, you'd have to hope that these 3 cards stop your opponent, and then you can mining without getting Astrid or anything. Going second, on the other hand, you'd obviously use these 2 or I mean, it depends on the matchup, but you would at least use the Ash most likely. Droll maybe as well. So let's assume we use those two to disrupt our opponent. We draw into the mining, which is great. And then from here, this hand unfortunately does not play through Nibiru, but it does at least make access code. So let's say that, what is it? Let's say our opponent has some sets left, they don't have any negates, and they don't have Nibiru, otherwise you don't really do much with this hand with Nibiru. We would twin the 2 back row with the field spell. Then we would use the mining, discard the Idle Reborn. It would suck if this gets Ash, but generally at this point there's not much we can do just because we had used these 2 to stop our opponent, and then there's not many options to discard anyways. And you do want to Twisters before you start searching or doing any normal summons, just because if your opponent has like a strike or anything, that could be very problematic. So yeah, let's assume we did all of that. We mining away, get our copy of, in this case, the Bakari, just because the Bakari can search the Rhoda and so on, so on. The Bakari will activate, grab our I Meet You. I realized I said earlier that I wouldn't do test hands, or play through the test hands, but this one's pretty simple, so I'll do it. Dark Infant ability, grab a copy of the field spell. I don't think you would want to banish the Picard in this case to set the field spell, just because you want to have some extra names in this case, just because your run's so dry. In this case, I'd probably activate the Rhoda first. Reveal the, we play the Fire Phoenix, for those of you that didn't watch the deck profile. Grab a copy of the Chi-Chi. The Chi-Chi, or sorry, get this engrave on resolution. Field spell activates, field spell effect, summon the Chi-Chi, a Chi-Chi effect, grab the Doyon. And then from here, you can go Splash Mage. Field spell ability, summon the Doyon will grab back the Bakari. The Splash Mage will summon back to the Chi-Chi. That's the reason why you, oh, I guess you could have banished the Dark Infant to set this field spell if you wanted to. Yeah, actually, let's say we did that. So, what I'm trying to say here is that actually, you can't do that, sorry, never mind. Ignore what I just said. So yeah, grab out the Bakari, go these 2 into an update jammer. The Doyon will trigger, grab back our copy of the Reborn. And then from here, you can make the transcode to the access code. You can go directly into the access code. As long as you get to it and you can OTK. And we have great follow-up for next turn, assuming your opponent didn't disrupt us during that line of play. So yeah, that's one test hand. You can see, again, hopefully these combos highlight the potential of this deck. In this case, we had essentially dropped our entire hand, and now we have resources to follow up with. So the deck's it can recycle pretty well. Alright, we'll do one more test hand. It does suck that we didn't draw any searchers or anything going first with that test hand, but it does happen. Even though we're playing, my list is playing 3 mining, 3 Rhoda, 3 Chi-Chi, 3 Bakari. Sometimes things like that happen where you just don't open, or you don't open a searcher and you're only left with disruptions in hand. In those cases, you want to make sure you don't fold, don't give in, don't feel like you can't win. Sometimes you could top deck and win. Sometimes your disruptions are good enough to stop your opponent so that you can continue playing. In that case, we were able to see the mining off the top. So remember, don't give up too soon when you're playing hands against your opponent. Okay, so our final test hand for this video. I apologize if you wanted more test hands, but again, as I stated, a lot of these hands end up being very similar. You can see this hand's pretty similar too. You have the Rhoda to grab the Bakari or Chi-Chi, and then you do the rival play, or if you're going second, you draw which sucks, but you still have access to OTK. But yeah, you can see a lot of these hands are pretty straightforward. I guess with this hand, we'll do it once more. In this case, sorry, we use the I Meet You, reveal the Light Dragon, grab the Picari, add Ignister. Notice on the Picari will search the Reborn since we already have so many copies of the field spell already. What's important to remember with a hand like this is, even though you have the 2 copies of the field spell, I still recommend normal summoning the Picari. The reason why is because what you can do is you can go into the Dark Infant, make your opponent think you don't have any copies of the field spell, then they'll be more tempted to Ash or Imperm that Dark Infant, and once they do, you just drop the field spell, and you would have essentially ripped a card out of your opponent's hand without losing anything detrimental to yourself. So you could get greedy, activate the field spell, special summon the Picari, but in this case, I feel like it's a little bit smarter to just play like this, or you know summon the Picari, just so that you can potentially bait out your opponent with the Dark Infant effect. Of course, we're going to play like our opponent doesn't have an Ash or anything for the Infant. Grab the 3rd copy of the field spell. Note that even though we do have 3 copies of the field spell and the AI contact would be good here, I still wouldn't recommend playing it. This doesn't happen too often, especially with most lists only playing 2 copies of the field spell. In this case, we just so happen to have 3. It happens. So yes, grab the Reborn. The reason why I didn't grab the Chi-Chi, didn't feel like it was too important here. We can dump it off the Brew. Yeah, just because the Reborn's more important. That's the reason why I grabbed it. I guess you could, oh no, yeah, we also already wrote it, so we can't grab the Chi-Chi anyways. What am I thinking? From here, you can activate the field spell. You can use its effect, Bururu effect will dump the Chi-Chi. Then what you can do here is you could just go Reborn the Chi-Chi, make the Dark Templar, try and sort out the attributes to make the Arrival. What I'm going to do here instead is I'm going to link these 2 off. Make a copy of the Wicked. This is sort of greedy, I guess you could say. The field spell will activate, summon the Doyon, Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. The Wicked will banish the Dark Infant. The Doyon will activate to grab back a copy of the Picari, since we normal summoned it earlier. So yeah, now we have this in hand. We're going to use the Reborn here. The reason why is because we know it recur it with a Doyon. Like you might be tempted to try and recur the Rhoda instead here, but you have to remember the Reborn's, in my opinion, the Reborn's more impactful to resources, just because in this case you can set it during your opponent's turn, Reborn the Chi or the Picari, we're going to get Engrave, and that just nets you more resources over time instead of just getting the Rhoda alone. So yeah, that's why I'm using the Reborn so early, because you can link all 3 of those off. Make the Dark Templar, the field spell, or the Doyon effect will activate, get the Reborn back, the field spell will activate, summon the Picari will activate, or the Picari won't activate, sorry for stuttering, the Templar will activate, summon back the Chi-Chi, the Bururu. You can then go all 4 of these into your copy of the Arrival. That is not Arrival. Oops. Don't want to damage my cards. Go into the Arrival. You can set the Reborn. You can Reborn during your opponent's turn to get more resources through the Chi-Chi or the Picari. Alternatively, you can Reborn the Bururu back to get the Negate Engrave. Regardless, you do have access to you do have a Towers. You do have suitable follow-up for next turn. Not the best follow-up, but it is follow-up nonetheless. That would be our draw for turn. But yeah, you can see, not too shabby. Essentially, the deck's very consistent. You can consistently get this on field. It's weird sometimes getting the Danmar Engrave, but usually you're able to get it Engrave, as I was able to show with these 3 combos. Or I guess not test hand 2, because we didn't draw anything. But yeah, making the Arrival is pretty easy with this variant of the deck, just because I maxed out on the consistency cards. If you don't like my list, that's okay. I do know that some people like to play more disruptions. For example, in this hand where we had drawn so many field spells, these could have been more copies of trap cards or hand traps. The extra Bururu we had could have been another hand trap or disruption or something. it's up to you how you play the deck. And going second, I should probably mention that before I mention any other closing comments. Going second, I believe our hand was this. Yeah, this was the opening hand. We would have drawn mining. Actually, no, that's post drawing. Let's clear up these real quick. So draw for turn. Okay, so going second, this isn't too bad. I'm going against back row decks. You can clear some of their back row by discarding one of the field spells, and then you can make access code pretty easily. Against some negates, it'll be difficult, but you should be able to push through just because you have plenty of names to summon off the field spell, and then you have this to grab one of your starters. So yeah, this said, for the closing comments, yeah, basically there's multiple ways you can build this deck. You might be looking at this deck list or this deck I'm using right now and thinking, wow, he's playing so many names, so many cards that could just be other disruptions. If you prefer to play more disruptions, you can do that. I'm just the type of player that prefers consistency over the disruptions, etc. And you can see that with a first test hand, that having that extra consistency can allow you to play through disruptions or negates. But yeah, at the end of the day, the deck is very versatile, it's very resilient. It's up to you how you choose to build a deck, but a lot of the core combos are the same, so hopefully this video was able to show you some of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Just remember that there's multiple ways of doing these combos as well, in addition to building your decks differently. For example, these 3 quick test hands I showed you, there are multiple ways you can approach them instead. For example, there's certain interactions you could have done differently. For example, this recent test hand I did, I went for the Wicked, but you don't have to go for the Wicked. It's really up to you. Even though the combos are very similar, there's a lot of changes you can do to tweak them to better suit what you're going against, whatever matchup you're going against, and your playstyle. That's just the benefit of the deck. So if you're an OG player or if you're a newer player, definitely continue playing the deck. It's a very fun deck. I enjoy it a lot, as you can probably tell with the channel. That said, I think that's all I have for this particular video. My name is Knights of AI. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you can. And I will now cue the outro.
Oh